how it works, how the streaming portion of it works. But it says we're live right now. So for those of you who may be joining us on YouTube, welcome in. It's good to see you guys. It's good to have you here. Oh, just kidding. Have a good cry and sit and feel the feelings. Is that one of the things? It's not one of the things exactly, Style, but it's not too far off from one of the things. Hey, Rose, is guitar okay? We played a game last night and it annoyed him or made him mad. Well, here we go. Hey, baby raging. Welcome in. Welcome in. Good to see you. Good to see you. And thank you again for those of you who are tuning in. Hello, Kitty Cat. I see you over there on YouTube as well. I'm going to try and be better about watching both chats. That's my goal for this week. He's okay. Just bum things happen he wasn't aware of. Got it. I know these things. I understand these things. Okay, I'm here. We can start now. Thank goodness it's Head of Steel, guys. Head of Steel is my main mod over on Twitch. So thank you again. Once again, if you are on YouTube, thank you for joining in. If you're on Twitch, thank you for joining in. I'm going to try and balance these the best that I can. Just ride the wave pretty much. I'm going to give you a strategy. Now, it may not work for you exactly the same way it does for me, because not everything works the same. But I'm going to give you a strategy. When you're in the pit and things are bad, but you're used to being the one who does things, who gets things done, who solves things. When you're used to being that person, I'm going to recommend you do 3 things, okay? 3 things. Are you ready? You can write these down. You don't have to. Thing number 1, feel the feelings. So just like Style said a second ago, give yourself permission to feel the feelings. The feelings that you're having are legitimate, and they're being caused by something. We know, thank you to Lisa Feldman Barrett and many other brain researchers on the subject, that our emotions are not adaptive. Meaning that we don't feel emotions because we're triggered by things the way that we think we are. Our emotions are predictive, which means that when we fall into an emotional state, it's because our brain is predicting things that are going to happen to us. So the first thing you have to do is you have to feel the feelings, but with a goal. I never want anybody to sit in a feeling without understanding where it's coming from. And so the goal is to understand, where is it coming from? What is my brain predicting on the basis of experiences I've had in the past? Because that's how your brain works. Brains, exactly. So number 1, feel the feeling and try to figure out where it's coming from. Number 2, this is going to sound dumb. It's going to sound terrible. It's going to sound simple, but it's true. And it works. And that's this. Simply, guys, gratitude. Gratitude. Try and find the things in your life that are so great that you're thankful for them. Try and figure out what it is. Try and anchor yourself to the things that are so good in your life that no matter what else happens, they hold you to your sense of self. Gratitude. Scientists have said that gratitude is the lubrication of the brain, that it leads to greater neuroplasticity, which is that ability to adapt and to do things that are out of the box, right? To be more creative, to be able to problem solve better. And I know it sounds like a platitude. It sounds dumb. It sounds like the worst advice, but it's really true. Find the things that you can be grateful for. Now, every morning I start my day, one of the ways I start my day is by trying to write down 3 things I'm grateful for and why. Try the same thing. It's a very difficult task, not dumb, just difficult. Sometimes, but it can be simple things, right? It doesn't have to be hard. Gratitude's not about the hard. Sometimes it could be about the easy. Sometimes it can, well, some days for me, it's just, I'm just grateful that I woke up today. I'm grateful that I was able to get out of bed. I'm grateful that the sun came up and I was able to get through my morning routine, right? Or I was able to get those 50 words down on paper, even though I wanted 1,500 words. I got those 15 words down, and I'm grateful that I didn't stop, that something in me drove through that. So gratitude, that's the second thing. Feel the feeling, know where it's coming from. Gratitude. Practice gratitude every single day. Why did I choose to discontinue Brew Crew? I'll talk about that in a little bit, Pineapple. Number 3, the third thing that you can do when you're kind of in the pit, or the third thing that I do at least when I'm in the pit, is find a way to turn my efforts outward. I talk a lot about this, and not everybody likes this. In fact, I had a coach one time tell me, no, you're absolutely wrong. If you're trying to make yourself feel better by finding ways to serve other people, then you're just medicating yourself with service. And with all due respect to that coach, he's absolutely wrong. 100% wrong. Not only is he wrong philosophically and theologically, which I could go into and I won't, but not only is he wrong from a philosophical standpoint, he's wrong from a biochemical standpoint. Because when we find other people to help, when we find other people to serve, when we find other people to elevate, our bodies actually produce hormones that will help us to lift out of a negative emotional state. It's one of the only things that helps us to lift out of that negative emotional state. And when we get that oxytocin, and when we get those chemicals that help us bond to other people, that's going to lift us and elevate us and move us out. So the third thing that I try and do is I try and find someone else to serve. In fact, every single day, one of the things I write down, the 3 things I'm grateful for. And the next thing I write down is one thing I'm going to do for somebody else today. One thing I'm going to do to try and elevate somebody else. Because when you elevate someone else, you are automatically elevated at the same time. So those are my 3 things. Not always necessarily are they going to work for you. You may have to modify those, but that is what I recommend. Number 1, feel the feeling, but try and figure out where it's coming from. And try and figure out where your negative prediction is wrong. Challenge your brain's prediction. Number 2, practice gratitude. Figure out the things that anchor you as a human being because they're so great. And number 3, service. Find someone else to serve. Find someone else to pour yourself into, because by elevating them, you will also be elevated. So that's for me. I hope that helps. Feel the feels, gratitude, attitude, and outward efforts. Got it. Perfect. As my energy decreases significantly and quickly, I'm noticing I'm falling in that pit because I'm not getting as much done, and we're getting close to the due date. That's hard, right? And that's one of the things for those of us who are movers and shakers a little bit, who are used to getting things done. One of the hardest things on the planet is taking a break. My father-in-law right now he's got kidney stones. He's got kidney stones. And so he is like laid up, and he's got tubes in him, and they're trying to do all kinds of things. He's going to go in, they're going to do a procedure because it's this bad, right? But my father-in-law is the consummate doing stuff person. He's the guy who's always fixing a car or up on the roof or whatever. You know, he's in his 70s. He shouldn't be doing any of these things, but he's doing them anyway. He's this guy. And right now, he posted on Facebook yesterday. He's like, pray for me because I'm going crazy. And that's the way it is. So that's the time when we need to take a step back, and we need to say, are all of the things that I'm doing taking the place of me understanding who I am? Whenever I've fallen into a really deep depression, a lot of times it's because I've been in transition from one place to the next. And it's because my identity was stuck somewhere in the middle. I talk a lot about identity, but that's really it. So sometimes that depression or that pit is a good signifier to let you know, hey, it's time to focus on who you are. It's time to focus on who you want to be. So, and Whit, I know you've got all kinds of things going on. You're going to be a new mother. It's crazy. Everything with parenthood is absolutely crazy. But I know that you're going to be tremendously successful. And I know that even though it's wearing on you now, that you'll come through it stronger, because we do. Let's see. Sounds like a lot of pressure. Are those things needed? It's a good question. Also, we have to ask ourselves, what's important? What's most important right now? Maybe we need a 3 things daily Discord channel. Ooh, we could do that. we could do that. By the way, if you're on YouTube, my Discord channel is going to be listed in the show notes for this in the description. If you are on Twitch here, you can just hit !Discord. If for whatever reason you're not in the Discord, you can join it there. That would be awesome. I will definitely take that to heart, and I will make it happen. Very good. You're getting a ton done. Sorry, I can't read. It's all just internal, and you'll see the fruits of that soon. That's true. It's really important, especially to people who are finishers, right? People who have that genius of tenacity. They really like to get things done. It's really important for them to recognize that the inward is as important as the outward, right? And that's hard. I know it's hard. But if we don't work on the inside at some point, then what we do on the outside eventually diminishes in importance and in value. And sometimes we have things in our lives that help us take that step back and say, okay, work on your inside now. I'm having one of those right now, as a matter of fact, and we'll talk about this in just a second. Thank you for hitting that. Getting the baby's room is pretty important. Does the baby have a place to sleep? He'll be okay. He'll be okay. You'll get it done, Whit. I know you will. All right. So let's talk a little bit about me for a second. That sounds terrible. I don't really like to talk about myself, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, I recognize that I'm just a big goofy guy who pretends to know a lot of things and who is actually in the middle of figuring things out as much as anybody else. And I've been going through a situation for the last couple of days where I've been looking at myself. I've been looking at some of the benchmarks I set for myself, been looking at some of the activities that I do, and I have decided that in some cases, I'm spending energy in places where I'm not seeing a return. So Pineapple, for example, asked, why did I decide to close out the brew crew, the 2-minute brew crew? So just for context, for texture, for those of you who are newer, the 2-minute brew crew is an outgrowth of something that was called the 2-minute beer review. And the 2-minute beer review was something that I started as my very first podcast back in 2018. And so I did that podcast for a couple of years, relatively successfully, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit in 2020, I kind of ceased all of my creative outlets personally, because I got into a place where I was really helping other people. I was helping them get their content online, and I was helping churches and schools with live streaming and learning how to do all that, because those were just things that I had learned to do. And so I let all of my own content slide. And then in 2022, at the beginning of 2022, that was when I started live streaming. And that's the fruit of what you're seeing now. And so I thought, well, this thing that I really love, which is the 2-minute beer review, I'll bring that to my live streaming channel, and I'll bring it in, and I'll make it a part of what I'm doing, and it's going to be great. And it was pretty good. When I first started growing the community, it was really good, because I was kind of on an island a little bit, and there were not a lot of other people working in that same space in that same time, and the community was just starting to knit itself together. And so it became a really good touch point for the community on a weekly basis to kind of just get together and chew the fat. Flash forward to 2 years later, the stream's just not doing very well. Honestly, it's not doing very well. People don't show up, they don't engage. When they do, they're usually in other places doing other things, and that's totally fine, right? All of that's good and well and fine. But what I had to evaluate was it serving a purpose anymore, right? Was it serving a purpose? And was I putting effort into it to get some kind of value out of it, not just for me, but for the community? And at the end of the day, last night, I kind of looked at it, and it was kind of that moment where I said, you know what? I don't think people need this anymore. I don't think it's actually helping people any longer. And since it's not really helping people, it doesn't fit in with the core strategy of what I do. And as a result, we're suspending it. Now, is it canceled forever? No, not necessarily. Are we going to toss it out the window? No, we're definitely not going to toss it out the window. Listen, I want to be very clear. I love the 2-minute beer review. I love the 2-minute brew crew. It's something that, honestly, it was the first thing that I built kind of on my own, and it's a little painful to let it go. But there comes a time when you have to look and you have to decide if the things that you're holding on to are things that are moving you forward or not. And at this time, it doesn't look like it's moving me forward. And more importantly, it doesn't really look like it's a necessity for the community. Community's got all kinds of other good stuff, and that's amazing. So I'm going to lean into that stuff, right? The stuff that the community loves and that's growing the community. I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to put this on the back burner for a while. It's not gone. Someday I'll figure out some kind of strategy. Maybe it'll be a vanity project. I'll kick it back to the podcast thing. But for right now, that was kind of where it was. Now, that kind of leads me into what I was talking about, which is I came into today a little bit down because when I made that decision last night, it was heavy. It weighed heavily on me, and it was really tough for me. It's going to be tough for me to say goodbye to that moment, but we can do hard things, guys. We can do hard things because the hard things that we do are the things that make us strong. And when we make a decision that we're going to leave something behind in order to move towards the future that we were designed to live, that makes us great. So, you know what? Today I'm a little sad, but I'm also one step closer to great, and that's okay. Let's see. I'm going to catch up with the chat here a little bit. The bed is what's covered by everything else currently. Well, you just have to clear off the bed then. The baby's got a place to sleep. You'll be fine. Style says, the idea of perfect can drown you when really the perfect is what is happening. Everything around it is bows and glitter. Yeah, so that's the thing, is that we get a concept of perfection into our minds, and we allow it to take us all kinds of places. But the fact of the matter is, when we think about that perfection, we so often fail to execute on the immediate. You've got to have one foot in the future. And you should be propelled forward by your past. But if you have both feet in the future, if all you're doing is focusing on not executing until you achieve perfection, you're going to fail. You're never going to get there, right? So that's what it's all about. Reserved for 12-hour streams now. Exactly, John. For the time being, reserved for 12-hour streams. Maybe a surprise 2-minute beer review stream randomly. Could be. It could be one of those things that I bring back. 100%. Absolutely. Could be. But and so, anyway, so I was carrying that into today, and then this morning, there was kind of a chaos around getting people to work and to school and things like that, and as a result, I ended up missing a meeting that was supposed to be like a 5-hour meeting that I was supposed to go to down in another city, and it just kind of, it all compounded, and the world was very heavy on my shoulders this morning, and so I had to do those three things, right? I had to take that moment and go, okay, hold on. What is it that I'm feeling? What I'm feeling right now is the dread of failure, right? Because that you could certainly read again that Brew Crew stream, the way it has fallen off, as a certain kind of failure. So, and I'm always afraid of that, right? My whole life, I've always been afraid that I was never going to amount to anything great. And so every time I have one of those things where it's a failure, I have to check myself and I have to go, no, this is good. We're moving forward. We understand what doesn't work. Let's find what works now, right? So I was in that process. So I was kind of giving myself the opportunity to feel that. And then it was, okay, but what's great in my life? And what's great in my life? The first thing I get up to is my wife and my daughter. And those things are great. Both of those people in my life are people who are not just supportive, but are absolute pillars of everything that I do. And so I woke up this morning to them and I thought, you know what? It's okay. I've got the things that are most important. And then on top of that, I had some friends that reached out to me, just randomly on Discord. And I wasn't able to go to this meeting. And so, Head of Steel, I'm going to give you the credit. And Style and Alleyman, I'll give you guys the credit as well. They reached out and they said, hey, do you want to play some Sea of Thieves? And I thought, you know what? I do, actually. I can't go to this meeting. Nobody else is going to be looking for me for a couple hours. Yeah, I want to jump on and do that. And you know what? I dove in, I did the best I could with those people. I was able to experience that gratitude, and I was able to try and help out. It was a small act of service, but it helped boost me up. And now I'm in a place where I'm okay. Let's see. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Exactly, Doc. Welcome in. Credit, blame, tomato, tomato. Fair. So all of that to say, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about a lot of things today. That's not it. But Kitty Cat, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is so important, is how do we dig ourselves out of the pit? And it all sounds easy and clinical, and I know it's messy and hard, but we can do hard things, right? That's the motto. We can do hard things. So, saving sanity and making people happy. Hero, let's go. Good job. Thank you. Thank you guys so much again for reaching out this morning. I greatly appreciate that. All right, let's move on. I have a couple of questions that I want to address before I get to kind of the meat of what we were going to talk about today. There's one question that was left over from last week, and then there's another new question that came in today. By the way, we have this thing. It's called Slido. And if you want to submit a question anonymously, you can submit it to that link right there. Let me also put it in the YouTube chat. So those are the... Nope. Yeah, that is it. Okay, perfect. So that's where you can submit questions anonymously. If you don't want to ask them in the chat for whatever reason, that's totally fine. Totally, completely fine. But the first question that we're going to go to today is this one. And it says, what would be your advice to someone trying to be a streamer, but also has medicinal issues that interrupt their day sometimes? This is an amazing question. I really like this. So again, I'm not top-notch streamer, right? I can only give you what I can give you, but here's what I'll give you. A lot of what I preach, and a lot of what people in the content creation space preach, is about consistency. Consistency. Maintain a schedule. Do the same things at the same time. Let people know when you're going to be and where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes life intervenes. Sometimes that can't happen. Sometimes that's not a possibility. So what do you do when you can't be there at the same time every day, in the same place, doing the same content? What do you do when you have something like this, like a medical issue or a work issue or anything? What do you do? If you want to be good, if you want to be great. Now, if you just want to... You want to hang out, that's a whole other thing. If you want to hang out, go live whatever you want and play whatever you want, and it's going to be fine. It'll be great. But if you really want to focus on driving yourself to excellence in the space, then some level of consistency is absolutely key. So what do? Number one, you stay as consistent as you possibly can. I would recommend in this situation, you still publish a schedule every single week, with the caveat that the schedule is subject to change. Number two, you have to have a conduit to let people know what's going on with you, right? So not what's going on with, not like you have to explain your medical situation or anything like that, but you have to be able to let people know, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it today. Hey, I'm going to be 2 hours late today. What you can't do is just go live and hope people show up. You've got to be in communication with the people who want to watch you. So whether that's on Twitter/X or Instagram, or just through Twitch stories or through YouTube or whatever it is you do, you've got to be over communicative. So that means you're gonna dedicate yourself to over communication, which is always a good thing anyway. So number one, stay as consistent as you can. Publish a schedule. Number two, be over communicative about where you are at. Number three, be transparent. Be transparent with your audience and with yourself. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to go into all of the ins and outs of like what your medical condition is and those things, but let them know. When you're in the middle of something and you realize that you can't go on, just be open with that. Don't make excuses for it. I've seen people who say, oh, you know what, guys, I'm getting kind of tired. I need to end stream. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you're frustrated, or if something's weighing on you, just let people know. They're going to respect that. Hey, guys, you know what? I think I'm going to have to end here. This is just, I'm not in exactly the right space right now. And I think we're going to call it right here. Because when you do that, that's giving you a moment and a point of connection between yourself and the people who are on the other side of that camera or the other side of that chat or whatever it is, right? That's creating that moment of connection. And if you want to be a good streamer, you have to create moments of connection. So my 3 recommendations for you on that are: number 1, maintain consistency as best as possible, publish a schedule. Number 2, be communicative and over communicative with your community. And number 3, be honest with yourself and with your audience and let them know where you're at. And when you can't, let them know why you can't. So that's it for me. There's a crafter I know that has a good sized channel who has issues, but they just BRB and nobody cares. Yeah, exactly. Because once that understanding is built into the community, the need to address it goes away over time. So make sure that you're very clear, very transparent up front as you're building that community about what your individual limitations are, and be okay with that. Because the people who are also okay with that are the people you want. They're the people you want in your community. I'm back. Sorry, Mitch called. He just got his oil changed. Well, good. I'm glad Mitch got his oil changed. How about his car? Is he going to get it changed in the car as well? Let's see here. Okay, next question. Next question is this. Hang on. Sorry, wrong window. There we go. Next question is this. Oh, the car is what you meant. Okay, I thought you meant maybe Mitch got his oil changed. I had pictures, mental pictures of what might be going on there. Question number 2 is this. How do you maintain decorum against abrasive personalities or those that have opinions that infuriate you? This is the one, right, guys? This is the one we've been learning for a few years now. Is what do you do when you come face to face with that person who is just saying dumb things? And you know they're dumb things, and maybe they're even dangerous things. What do you do? Kind of like dialysis. Yes, exactly. What do you do when you come face to face with those things? Well, that kind of depends. It kind of depends on what your goal is. Now, if you're someone who's leading, if you're somebody who's leading a community or a group of people or a team at work or those kinds of things, then it's your responsibility to maintain order. It's your responsibility to maintain the correct direction of the group. And so the trickiest part to being that person is that sometimes you've got to have a thick skin. There's an individual that I work with who knows everything. Do you know these people? The person who knows everything. It's a person they've been in the work sector that we're in for a really long time. They know everybody in town, and as a result, they know everything. And as a result of knowing everything, they're highly inflexible when it comes to input, when it comes to feedback, or when it comes to problem solving in alternative ways. And as a result, this person makes a ton of comments that are, number one, as an expert in organizational health, they're just wrong, right? They're just wrong. They treat people in a way that people shouldn't be treated at work. They are abrasive in ways that people shouldn't be abrasive at work. But it's my job to help kind of mold everything together. And so for me, it's about determining what needs to be approached, what needs to be spoken to in the moment, and what can kind of go away for a minute. And how do I take some of those moments out of the public forum and into the private forum? One of the things, if you're dealing with a person interpersonally who is telling you things, if they're being very abrasive to you, if they're being rude and really hurting to you or to other people who are around you, one of the things that I like to do is I like to remind them of what they just said and say, hey, again, privately, usually. Sometimes if it comes to the point where it's a public situation, sometimes I'll say this out loud in public, but usually it'll be something like, hey, you just said this sentence that they just said. Did you intend for that to be insulting? Did you mean for that to be hurtful? And a lot of times they'll go, "Oh, no, 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 no. Well, of course I didn't mean that." And that's an opportunity for you to be honest with them and to say, "Well, it was hurtful. It came across in a way that was mean. It came across in a way that was inappropriate." And a lot of times when you bring people out of the conceptual and into the personal, it gets a lot harder for them to maintain that meanness quotient, right? Simon Sinek, in his book Leaders Eat Last, talks a lot about this. He talks about how the reason it's easy for people to be mean is because of ambiguity, right? So when we group ourselves into groups, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, when we group ourselves into these big groups, it's really easy to hate everybody that's not in our group because of the ambiguity. But sometimes it comes down to trying to recognize the humanity. And so sometimes it's all about looking for that moment of humanity. That person who said that thing that's super dangerous. I'm going to pick something that's isn't as innocuous as I possibly can. Give me a second to think my way through this. Let's say somebody says, this is as outrageous as I can possibly think. Somebody says, "No, absolutely. Seatbelts are not necessary. In fact, not only are they not necessary, but they're dangerous. You should never wear a seatbelt." Well, that needs to be addressed, right, with that person, because that's misinformation. It's not true. We know it's not true. But the question you have to ask yourself there are two questions you have to ask yourself when somebody says seatbelts aren't necessary. The first question is, why would this person believe that? What is it in this person's life that makes them believe that? Especially if you know outside of that they're a pretty good person, right? Or you make that assumption, as I do. I always make assumption that people are good people unless they show me otherwise. So if we're making the assumption that person's a good person otherwise, but they just have a crazy belief, why would they think that? What happens in their life that they want to believe that misinformation? And sometimes that's the question. Hey, I hear you're saying this. Can you talk to me more about why you want to believe that? Not why you believe it. Don't ask people why they believe things. People, number one, don't usually have an answer to that question. Or if they do, they'll make something up. And people are hyperbolizing when they talk about, well, this group of people is untrustworthy, and they say that, right? That means they haven't really thought it through. But why do you want to believe that? Why do you want to believe the things that you believe that are harmful to you? Why do you want to believe that you're not good enough? Why do you want to believe that you can't be great? Why do you want to believe that you can't do the things that you need to do in order to get to the best version of yourself? Because at some level, we all do believe those things about ourselves. But what we have to ask is not what we believe or even, why we believe it, but why do we want to believe it? So when I'm dealing with a person who's got crazy views, the first thing I'm always going to ask them, if I can, is why do you want to believe that? What is it about the world that made you want to believe that? And I would bet you'll find out a whole lot more about their history that way. And once you understand a person's history and their perspective, sometimes it's a little bit easier to give them grace. And that is the number two thing, is that giving people grace, being gracious, being graceful to other people, being full of grace for other people is all about understanding that there's a separation between issues and people. And the fact of the matter is that people believe the wrong thing about issues 50% of the time. 50% of the time, people are going to be wrong about whatever the given thing is. When I reflect back on myself, I can see the places in my life where that's true. And that gives me that moment of grace to go to that person and go, hey, Let's have a talk about this. Let's talk further about it. Now, the trick to this is it's really hard when the person is scattering that out on Facebook or they're putting it out on Instagram or whatever, right? They're putting out the crazies out there, right? Or they've got their own podcast or they're spewing whatever it is that they're spewing out in the public forum, because we naturally want to jump in and we want to say, no, 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 that's wrong. You shouldn't be telling people that. But here's the fact of the matter. If we go back to the first question about why people believe what they want to believe, the matter is this: we're not going to change people's minds who want to believe the things they're saying for some reason. Because these people, generally speaking, right, don't have actual facts to back up what they're saying. And so the people who are going to believe them want to believe them. And so we're back to square one. It's not about figuring out why people believe them. It's not about giving superior facts. Sometimes it's about figuring out what's broken in people that they want to believe these things. And how can we begin to help them come to a place of healing? Because I really do think that's it. When we recognize the brokenness in ourselves, and it's got to start there, guys. It's got to start with recognizing the brokenness in yourself. If you can't recognize the brokenness in yourself, then you will never be able to recognize the brokenness in other people. The Lord's Prayer, right? I'm sorry, I'm going to get briefly theological for a moment, right? But it's forgive us, right, in the way that we forgive other people. Well, why? Why would we have to forgive other people? It's not as a contingency of forgiveness. That's a whole different theological construct that I'll talk about at length if anybody wants to hear. But the fact of the matter is that we have to recognize our own needs before we can serve the needs of other people. So that's kind of what I would say. Provide as much grace, breathe, step back. Always don't send the text. Always don't send the message, right? Always filter it through somebody else if you feel like you're acting out of emotion. Because here's the other thing. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna quote my my friend and mentor Erwin McManus, who talks about the fact that we have the right to have emotions, but our emotions don't give us the right to act. So ask yourself: are you acting out of service to someone? Are you acting out of service to yourself? Are you acting out of service to this other person? Or are you acting because you just feel like you have to act in the moment? That's always a good time to check yourself and to question yourself. So flat earthers, yes. Let's see. Let me catch up with chat here. Like Facebook right now in the election season. Yes, exactly. This is the right time to be talking about this. He tends to be a jerk or belittle you if you don't know things or ask too many questions. Yes, absolutely. These are the people in the workplace that cannot succeed because they're not going to be able to make it. She is not me after all. Picture Chanf. Chandler from Friends asking, could you be more insulting? Try to emphasize before I critique. I understand that you're dealing with a difficult situation with. I was trying to think of ways we might work to fix it by. That's good. It's good. Flat earthers. The ultimate question, what's wrong with you? I mean, that is the ultimate question that I ask myself, that people ask me, is what's wrong with you? Absolutely. All right, so let's see. I have one more question. And this question is about accountability. I talk a lot about accountability on these streams, which is great, because accountability, it's the A in idea, right? It's kind of the last thing that we need to build in. Now, let me give you this caveat. It's the last thing that we need to build in, but it's the first thing that we need to leave for last, which sounds insane. Here's what I mean by that. You can't get to accountability before you have a few other things in place. But we want to get to accountability really fast in our lives. We really want to hold people accountable. Sometimes we really want to be held accountable. But you can't have accountability until you have a few other things, right? I'm going to give you some other things. I'm going to crib this language from Pat Lencioni and what he calls the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Here are the things that you need before you can get to accountability, which would be number 4, okay? accountability, and then performance, right? Those are the top. Those are kind of, if you're doing a Maslow's pyramid, those two things are at the very top of the pyramid. So you cannot get to accountability until you have a baseline of trust. Talked about this last week. You've got to create trust before you can get to accountability. Otherwise, it's just crime and punishment. Now, this is a really timely topic because it goes into something that I want to talk about in a second here. But you have to have a baseline of trust. The second thing you have to do is you have to have a safe format for conflict. People all the time talk about conflict being bad. I talked last week about how when I grew up, it was wrong to be critical of people. And the problem with not being critical ever is that if we don't criticize things, or if we don't create safe spaces for conflict, number one, all voices don't get heard, and all voices must be heard if we're going to make the right decisions. And number two, nothing gets better because we all just go along, and just going along is the worst thing we can possibly do. There's got to be a point of conflict at some point where we say, no, hold on, we got to talk this out. We got to make sure that we're making the right decisions, the right choices. So, baseline of trust, safe structures for conflict. Number three is commitment. There's got to be a commitment, and the commitment goes two ways. When we're holding people accountable, they must be committed to the goals that they have, or to the things that they want to do, or to the person that they want to become. Number one. Number two, we must be committed to them above and beyond holding them accountable. This is a trick as a coach. This is a trap that we fall into as coaches a lot of time, that we think it's our job, and it is our job, to hold people accountable. But sometimes some coaches that I've worked with, they don't have a true commitment to helping that person move to the next place. Their commitment is just to helping them do the things that they need to do. That doesn't lead anybody anywhere. So there's got to be trust. There's got to be a safe space for conflict and a safe process for conflict. There's got to be commitment that goes both ways, and then we get to accountability. And so how do you hold others accountable with actions, tasks, or hurtful words when they take things defensively? What I would say to whoever put that question out is, if they're taking things defensively, then one or more of those baseline layers is missing. There hasn't been a relationship of trust created. They don't understand that conflict is necessary and how to deal with it. And so that's the conversation that needs to happen first, or there's not a commitment. And a lot of times when people aren't committed to their goals and they know they're not committed to their goals, they get self-conscious about it. I mean, why wouldn't you? I get self-conscious about the goals that I know that I need to approach that I'm not committed to. And self-consciousness so often translates into defensiveness. So those are the three layers. Build trust, build a safe space for conflict, build an understanding of a two-way commitment, and then you will have a safe space for accountability. If not, then it's just yes, no, get out of here. Paradox of Tolerance, Karl Popper, written just after World War II. Really good to read and contemplate. That is good. That's good advice, 100%. So as we come into the final bit of it, I want to take that last piece and I want to tack it on to what I really wanted to talk about today. Not what I really wanted to talk about. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I got into today. So there's this meme that went up last week. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can put this up on screen. Hang on. There we go. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. So this is a quote by Kurt Vonnegut. I did vet this quote to make sure it's an actual quote. Hey, Ben, welcome in. You're not too late. You're not too late. We still got some time, but welcome in. So Kurt Vonnegut said this. He said, for some reason, the most vocal Christians among us never mention the Beatitudes, but often with tears in their eyes, they demand that the 10 Commandments be posted in public buildings. And of course, that's Moses, not Jesus. I haven't heard one of them demand that the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, be posted anywhere. Blessed are the merciful in a courtroom. Blessed are the peacemakers in the Pentagon. Give me a break. That's Kurt Vonnegut from cold turkey back in 2004. So, where am I going to come down on this? We've got the 10 commandments. You guys know the 10 commandments. They're all the thou shalt nots, right? You shall not kill, right? Let's see. Don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet, those things, right? Covet is a funny word. It just means don't be so jealous of other people's stuff that you determine that you're going to take it away from them, right? Don't be eager to get the things that other people have. And the 10 commandments are great. Those are things you shouldn't do. You shouldn't kill people. You shouldn't murder people. You shouldn't commit adultery. You should not steal. Guys, I'm going to go out. I'm going to make a controversial statement. I'm going to say you shouldn't steal. But here's the thing. A lot of people in the world, and this is where, again, I have made no aspersions around the fact that I identify myself as a follower of Jesus. Christian is kind of a loaded word, but we'll use that word. That's fine. 10 commandments are great. All things you shouldn't do. But the problem is that when we take those 10 commandments, we say we want these on the walls of all of the courtrooms and the schools and all of the places, that these 10 commandments, these are the things. We should hold everybody to these things. And do you realize that when we're doing that, we're holding people to the lowest bar possible? The 10 commandments are literally designed as the lowest common denominator. Don't kill people. Don't murder them. Cool. Don't steal things. Great. Don't take your neighbor's stuff because you want it. Good. Absolutely. Don't do those things. But you know what? If you don't do those things, it doesn't make you great. If you don't do those things, all it makes you is not in jail. All it makes you is not in trouble. And are you being told in your life that the most important thing for you to do is to stay out of trouble, is to meet the minimum? Because if there's any system in your life where you're being told that the expectation is for you to meet the minimum, then you must remove yourself from that situation if you truly believe that you have a contribution to make. The 10 commandments are fine, but the 10 commandments are establishing a baseline. They are not calling us to excellence. And so people who want to pretend that that's what we need to create American excellence have missed the point. Now, the Beatitudes, which come from the Sermon on the Mount, as Vonnegut says, are a little different. Let's take a look at some of the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes is a funny way of saying these are a series of statements that Jesus said, where he said, blessed are the fill in the blank people, right? And then he gives the why, right? So he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The poor in spirit, who are the poor in spirit? They're the people who are humble. They're the people who understand that the universe doesn't revolve around them. Do you see the difference? Don't murder anybody. Okay, cool. That's a thing that I can do. Blessed are you if you're poor in spirit, if you understand that the universe isn't about you. That's not something I can do. That's someone who I am. That's calling me to elevate above the baseline. And life is about elevating above the baseline. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. This, in the sense of this, it's generally considered that Jesus is talking about the people who mourn over sin and injustice. Blessed are those people who are grieved when things are not right with the universe. Don't steal. Okay, now I know what not to do. Blessed are you when you mourn because things are wrong. Now you know who to be. Now you can elevate. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Be gentle, be kind. Understand that nothing in the world gets done outside the context of other people. I could go through all of these. I won't because we're almost out of time. But this is my message. If you are one of those people who believes that the 10 Commandments should be in every place, in every institution, in all of the world, then you're missing the point. The 10 Commandments are put in place so that we understand the baseline of what it is to get along in a society. But if you really want to make a society great, you've got to teach people to elevate, not just in action, not just in behavior. This is where people get it wrong. It's not about what you do. Because unless what you do comes from who you are, it will never be permanent. It will never be important. It will never be great. Let me catch up with chat here real fast. I've heard Christians literally fight tooth and nail with the 10 Commandments, say you shall not murder, justified killing is righteous and just. As someone that tries to live in Christ's example, it was terrifying to me. God is love. God dealt with a Samaritan woman through well. True. To be specific, when it's talking in the 10 Commandments, it is saying you shouldn't murder. But in general, I would agree. I don't think the God that I read about in the Bible wants anybody to be killed. Anybody who's reading into that and saying, hey, we should be going and killing people, I have some questions about that. Yes, the answer at the end of the thing is that God is love, right? But above and beyond that, if you really believe in this stuff, even if you don't believe in it, if you don't believe that we're called to a character of love, then I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm just sorry for you because your soul is small if you don't believe we're drawn to a place of love. Ben, Orf, I had another conversation with my boss. I'm going to reach out to you 1v1. Need some help? I'm here for you, Ben. Absolutely. Exclamation coaching if you guys need any. We might have to revisit some of this later. Absolutely, Head of Steel, 100%. Well, there's definitely more time for this. But the baseline is this. It's good to have some rules in place. That's good. But rules don't elevate people. States of being, thoughts, understanding, and the way that your mind works is what elevates you. And that's the difference between the 10 Commandments and Jesus. Not that one's wrong and one's right. Not that they're incompatible. But they're designed for two different things. And we should always be aspiring to the greater of the two. Well, we maintain the rules. We got to have laws. Keep your seatbelts on, folks. All right, folks, that is it for me for the day. I want to thank you again so much for hanging out with me. For those of you who popped in on YouTube, thank you again. This is still a new thing for me. Guys, I will be back. For those of you who are on Twitch, I will be back tomorrow night with my normal evening stream, getting back to some gaming content. There will be some changes around that coming in the future as well. I just want to be really grateful to you guys, really thankful for the time that you spend with me here on these days. And I just want to go out and remind you one more time. I want to remind you one more time that the reason it's so important for me that you don't settle for the baseline, the reason that it's so important for me that you don't settle for just the rules, for just the behaviors, but that you seek to elevate your mind in order to create patterns that create greatness is because I believe that you have greatness within you. I believe that there is a moment of greatness that's waiting for you. I believe this with all of my heart. And I hope that it comes through in sincerity. But I also believe that that moment of greatness is not coming for you. And when we sit in the rules, we're waiting for greatness to come to us. But when we seek the elevation of character, that's when we pursue our moment. So get out there and pursue your moment. Now go be great. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.